Yo, what is up, everybody? John from Top Tactics here, bringing you another video. We got a very special guest, my twin brother Patrick. What's up, Pat?
What's up, Johnny? Good to be here.
Hell yeah! Thanks for joining. Yeah, so Pat and I had a very interesting situation pop up. Biggest twin moment I think we've had in like years. We played in round five of the Rocky Mountain Open. So today we're going to break down the World Eaters versus Tau matchup because we've both played it a ton at this point. A little bit about our game, and then we're going to show some TTS demonstrations of like some of the key moments there, and also kind of what it like might be new for World Eaters in terms of having a new really strong utility unit for the army coming out in the Goremongers. So Pat, I'd love to hear just like we've played what like probably this matchup 15 to 20 times. Tell me a little bit about like kind of your thoughts going in, like what are the keys to like being successful and kind of yeah, what are the decision like big decision points for you?
Yeah, I think one, we actually practiced the exact matchup we ended up playing the day before RMO, which was pretty funny. And I think something that me and John will always preach and do with each other is tell each other how to beat each other. And when we were playing that game, I was definitely a little cagier with Angron, which is a lot of the moment that we're going to talk about here today. I was playing cagier with Angron, and John just had told me like, "Hey, I don't really have that great of a way to deal with him because he's T11. T10 is something that I can deal with because I can get the +2 strength, go to strength 10 on hammerheads and that sort of thing. But T11 is a huge problem, and the only real thing I have to deal with them is the hammerheads. And if you hit 4/4 up invulns, then it's really bad for me. So that was something that came up in our game. But in general, Tau is a hard matchup for World Eaters just because, especially Oxcod, just because it's got so much trash. And a great player like John will know how to um, play the trading game and not let me get to, not let me get to his juicy bits. There's no way for me to get to. It's very difficult for me to get to his stuff. Like measuring threat ranges is something really important in this game, but it comes with a lot of practice, but the way that I usually find where I can win is it's a lot of jank in the movement and charge phase, and it's hard to prepare as a defender. I would say for that sort of thing because it's more opportunistic. It's like what is the person giving me, and I think we've had a number of games where you know one game we played, you completely screened like the whole board with like 3 units of Kroot, like end to end. And I think I killed like one or two. And because I had killed those one or two, I was able to get a full 10-man unit of Berserkers and Karn through this little angle, just like this little bubble of like 4 inches, and was able to get to, um, you know, the guys on your objective and like completely open up the game for me and put a lot of pressure on early. And even in a different game, I think recognizing how important it is to kill screens. I think you had secure no man's land and you put 10 Kroot, you strung them off of two objectives, and you were using them to get secure, but also to move block me. And I ended up overwatching with a Rhino because if I kill one of them, it ends up killing like four of them and just completely breaks. You don't get secure because coherency. It breaks that line, and you need to hit like a 5 up, and you hit a 5 up save. So I think knowing knowing where you need to apply pressure, and then again, every good World Eaters player, you have to put yourself out there and shove and know when to shove in a turn, and just say like, "Here's my whole army. If you don't kill me in one turn, the game's over." Um, so I think that that's kind of where my head's at. Is like, okay, how can I get places to be safe if I am killing stuff, and the game's not going my way. I think it's a perfect example too of like, ideal scenario, I get turn one. Um, and I'm able to kill your trash, and we start playing towards the middle or your side of the board. But in this situation, uh, for one, like you getting first turn is great for you, but on the second hand, like if you're throwing me trash and feeding me units every turn, I'll win on kill more. So that was kind of where my head's at for this game. Was like, if you continue to feed me units and I try to keep my stuff safe, um, I should win the primary game just on kill more. Um, and I ended up I did win on primary. Like I think I
Yep.
beat you
Oh,
by like 4 points or something like that, or eight.
yeah, exactly. No, it was 8.
Um,
Yeah, you had 48, I
yeah,
had
yeah.
40. Yep. Yeah, I put it up
But
on the screen so people
that's
could
kind
see.
of how I see the matchup. Like the two things that really come up is like if Ingron comes back, obviously that's a massive swing for me.
Hmm.
Um, Handing no fallback checks from Exalted, like Tau is filled with leadership seven. If I'm able to hand you three or four no fallback checks in the game, and even just passing one, it's completely backbreaking because it
Yeah.
just allows me to do that. Right. I think that's part of where my head's at a lot of times in these matchups. Like I'm willing to take that risk and throw a unit of Exalted at like you know some Vespids. They can pile into some Crute and possibly live. And it happened at RMO to me many times. This was my third town matchup, but I think I handed probably 10 no fallback checks out, and I think one of them was failed. But like the situation where they do fail, because math is math, like you know, four of those should fail,
Hmm.
and if they do, then it's another massive momentum swing in my favor because I open up a side of the board for myself. I guarantee a unit in your face. So that's kind of where my head's at for the World Eaters matchup
Yeah, I think
and
you.
ends out.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a micro thing, but I thought that was a really good play when you overwatched with Invicatus on that one situation, right? Because I had to burn my auto advance 6 to get
The
there.
Rhino.
It was the Rhino. Yeah, I had to burn my
Yeah.
auto advance 6 to string the whole unit out, and then I lose the move block that I was like kind of guaranteeing for myself on that portion of the table. But yeah, we'll kind of show you some of like the micro movement things around World Eaters. Like while it's definitely a Tau favored matchup, I think it can be really spooky for the average player. I don't think anyone walks into a World Eaters matchup and they're like, oh, this isn't spooky because like if you make like one or two little mistakes, like you could just get run over. Um, but yeah, to your point, like first turn matters so much in this matchup because like of the Pathfinder Scout and saying, okay, you're not going to interact with this side of the board. I get guaranteed primary over here versus you being able to like use my Pathfinder unit. It's kind of impossible to like to avoid, but use it as like both a springboard and an opportunity to stage in like really awkward spots. Um, so we did play on layout 6, so there's a lot of opportunity there, I think, for the World Eaters player to like stage behind these weird little blocks in the on layout 6, and make me have to like come out to the mid board to be able to get angles on them. Yeah, which was you know as we'll talk about here in a second, and I think we'll just pull TTS up here. Um, can get really uncomfortable as the top player. So yeah, we'll just switch over to TTS really quickly, the TTS view. Um, and so yeah, what we can see, like what we've set up here. So this was like a pivotal moment in the game. I believe this was your turn 3.
Three.
Yeah, it was your
Yeah,
turn
bottom
3.
three.
So what I was doing here is I was saying, okay, now I don't really plan on scoring this objective over here, but at the very least, Pat's not really going to get to interact with this side of the table, and I have a good crackback, right? Rampagers do pretty well into 8 bound, and I have the ability to like throw a grenade, charge mortals. Like I probably should win that fight between those two things. And then here I was just like, you know what? We're just going to put a move block down the table and say like you can hit me with your Mo unit if you really want it. But one thing that Pat did that I think was really good, and like he was kind of you can't really see it from. I'll pull up the score really quickly again, but you'll see my turn 1 and 2. I had really great secondaries. I think the secondary differential was it was 11 points. Turns 1 and 2, I'd gotten the kill early, so I was up, let's say 15 going into turn 3. So at this point, Pat was ready to like make some risky plays, but I think these plays like really worked out in his favor. So yeah, Pat, I'll kind of like hand it over to you, but like tell me a little bit about kind of your thought process going into this turn. You're down 15, like you're going second, but you really need like a. I still have a lot of my guns alive. You really need like a momentum swing here.
Yeah. And importantly, I did get advance in charge. I really believe if I did get advance in charge, I could win this game
Yeah,
like pretty uh uh pretty reliably.
yeah,
And just to go through the point of what would happen if I did do advance in charge, what I would do is these guys would come out, I would auto advance them 6, they'd be up here 15 at 15. I would multi charge both these two units. try to pick up all of these, have them, three of them based in here, pile into these recruit, and then a lot of the things that I would be scared about with Angron kind of go away. And part of what I learned playing World Eaters, and it's something that you really have to get it, you have to turn your brain off on the idea of trades
Yeah.
because World Eaters wins on tempo. And so by that, what I mean is like this Mo unit right here, just charging crit. They're 70 points. The Mo unit's like 300. On its face, it looks really dumb to do that. You know, and we'll move towards the other play I did with Angron, but it's in a similar vein. But it's all for tempo, and tempo being I have Blood Surge on my Mo unit. I fights first. I have Sticky on Death. Like if John, I'm forcing John to put stuff on the middle before he attempts to kill me. I'm forcing him to push stuff out into the middle to deal with this unit. And if he doesn't deal with them and kill them in one activation, which thankfully he does, then I could sticky the middle, or I could blood surge into his unit and again get that tempo I'm looking for, where it's like I kill a unit, I force him to come close to me, I blood surge into another unit, kill that unit. So now all of his units are closer to me. I'm killing his stuff in his turn, and I'm in his backfield almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, to me, he had to bring his fire knife unit out here. If I survive, right, and I pile into Vespid, kill the Vespid, I'm right in front of that fire knife unit, and we're playing on his side of the board, and that's really, really bad for John.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And like one
so,
thing to note.
so
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say one thing to note here is like I'm giving away the kill more, so like giving Pat a hold more, like in the hopes of getting a hold more. So like giving Pat a hold more here is like catastrophic, because that's like part of
yeah,
my contingency plan. Is like, okay, sure, he's probably gonna get kill more. He's probably gonna beat me on primary a little bit just because he's going second. But if I can at least like limit the kill mores a little bit while not giving him any hold mores, especially with this lead, then I should be in good shape. But you'll see, I'll bring up the score again that doesn't actually pan out for me.
and I knew, I had one jackal here on the top of the board. I had 3 8 bound here. This also just guarantees that I get my hold right here. That
Exactly.
I'm getting my hold for next turn. Like there's no real way for him to be on the objective or charge onto the objective. Like he would have to charge my 8 bound or my jackals, which I would just
That's not
heroic
real.
with my 8 bound.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. It's just not something he's gonna do. Um, so the game plan again, being down 15 is like I have to take risks. So this was my first risk, was just like, okay, I need to force him to come out and put him in a situation where he has to deal with not just one thing but multiple things. So that kind of brings me to this point right here. So unfortunately, this unit, I just have no way for them to really get anywhere reliably and not die just like in the middle of the board. You know, something I will not do, and I think I was low on CP is go for 8 or 9 inch charges when I know that maybe in a different world, if this was turn 4, I would go for a 10 inch charge. But realistically, knowing that I have bottom of turn, I need to conserve resources, and just giving away a unit for free is not going to be a recipe for success. And I knew he had to come out. So I was like, I know he's going to have to come out, and I will get a crackback with this unit
hmm
doing something. So unfortunately, they just have to sit for a turn. Um, but when I saw this over here, what was going on over here, I had some ideas because I knew I needed to bring Angron out. I knew I needed to start pressuring this objective, and start trying to collapse multiple sides of the board at once. So I had 11-inch move. I moved these guys out. And so the whole plan here is like, okay, how can I best case scenario, hide my units so that he can't shoot me. And the great thing about um, this objective here is you can, by getting closer to the objective, you can completely line this part of the terrain piece, which becomes pretty much uninteractable with this angle here. Thankfully these guys have true line of sight, but this angle here, you're gonna have to get right here to see me.
hmm
And then similarly, if you're like the fire knife unit, you're gonna have to come all the way out here to see me. Right? There's
Yep.
like this angle here. It's almost impossible. There's basically one angle. It's like this.
Yep.
So he has pretty much one unit that can actually interact with that angle. Obviously he has this guy who can come out, but it's still super awkward for him to get there. But he doesn't have that much stuff to deal with my 8 pound unit. And so that brings me to like what I did with Angron, which is, you know, I knew if I was able to get him into a place where I could stage really effectively, um, and build a lot of momentum and tempo. Ingron's a unit, especially when John has so many units clustered together. He's just a force multiplier. If I have one 8 bound left and I get reroll hits, like I'm killing a unit of stealth suits. I'm almost killing a whole unit of rampagers. Like it gets really, really bad. Let alone the damage that Ingron can do to 2 units because he's killing pick 2 units, he's killing them. It's gonna happen. So that's why I just brought him out here. He moved 16. I brought him like within an inch. And then in the charge phase, I leapfrogged him over here.
Not
I
touching the
brought these
feature.
guys. Yeah, not touching the feature. Well, I could
He
touch
was
the
even.
feature
I
and
think he
still
was
get
even
piled.
like this spot almost.
Yeah, 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 just like that. And then these guys came in right,
Yep.
and I wasn't really able to do anything because again, a great top player recognizes that like pile-ins are really bad. So John was like staying 4 inches away, and we completely pre-measured everything, but staying 4 inches away so that I couldn't pile in and get more tempo that way, which is always something I'm looking for. The 2 units charge 1 unit, I kill that unit, pile into another unit.
And
That's
if
another thing to always look out for.
Yeah, and one thing I think that actually happened here was I left 2 inch gaps here, and I think
Mm-hmm.
you were able to end up like in this spot, because in the following
Mm-hmm.
turn, I actually had to charge them, in the hopes of
Mm-hmm.
killing Angron. So they ended up in like this really awkward spot with the ability to like, I want to say they were like somewhere like this where they just then consolidate over this way. But anyways, sorry to interrupt there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was pretty much the play. Was like, all right, these guys moved up here to stage, and I knew John was going to have to come out and bring a lot of things out to bear to deal with the units that I had placed out there. I didn't think it would be. I thought I'd be wasting my time throwing my Exalted out because I knew I was going to need them for bottom of turn, and I was already starting to get low on resources. And I would rather him shoot me with planes, you know, than deal with like Krutok charging me, which can actually kill some 8 bound. I wanted him in a situation where he couldn't put stuff on the objective and then shoot me off of it or
Hmm.
charge me with things, so that I could just sticky it and guarantee my 12.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my head was at. So obviously I killed the Vespid, but after that, consolidated these guys. Like I put them an inch closer to the objective,
And I believe Mo was
and
like
just
here, which is important because then
yeah, yeah,
you could like leave one dude with Mo, um,
yeah, exactly.
and like I couldn't reliably like touch this and be. And there was nine
Yeah, I think he
guys,
was
which
like
which
hiding
really
behind us.
mattered. There was a guy who died in the get out from the, so that removed full hit rerolls from this unit, which is like really helps the reliability of one shotting the berserkers. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah. So then my what I kind of realized when I was in this position was okay. This is terrible, but like I've got, I have, let's see, I have a Meltagun that I can shoot at Angron. I have Shadow Sun. I have the Rampager's grenades plus charged mortals, and these guys ended up somewhere right here. Like the charged mortals were very much like a last ditch effort. I remember I was also low on CP, and I believe I rolled in advance on these guys because I just wanted to get something on the objective, and they were not close enough to actually interact with the objective. I think I rolled an 8, and I didn't have the CP to reroll it because I needed a grenade, and I really wanted to have the extra strength, so I'd be wounding on 2s over here. So what ended up happening was these guys popped out. They did one-shot this unit, but you stickied the middle. So then I had,
Hmm.
and I don't believe there were Vespid here actually. I didn't have anything else in the area to actually touch that objective. So he stickied the middle. I put my entire army into Angron. I actually advanced the broadsides. I needed like a 3 or a 4 to get them shooting Angron, and this little piece wasn't actually in the terrain that we were playing, so was able to get these guys shooting. But then I realized really quickly, like I think the thing that really, and I had also shot a bunch of the seeker missiles, I believe, earlier in the game. So I think I only had like two
Mhm.
seeker missiles maybe, and I didn't know that there was actually just no angle for the Samurai to Angron. Period. Like I thought, okay, like maybe if I step into this ruin, I can get an angle, but this doesn't actually exist. There is no line there, and there's also no line here through this spot.
Yeah, which we
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 checked,
looked
yeah,
at.
we checked the player pack and everything. So this guy didn't have a job. We had two Razor Sharks without Seeker missiles, I believe, because I used them trying to kill 8-bound, and basically one broadside activation that we were preying on. So what ended up happening is I think I did like 8 damage maybe with the broadsides,
I
and then
only
I
failed one save.
you only
Yeah,
failed
and
one
you rolled a
save,
6, so
and maybe it was
yeah.
like I think I got like a missile drone shot through too maybe. But basically I shot my entire army at him, and then I think I rolled a grenade for one mortal or something like that, and he ended up on like
Mhm.
1 or 2 wounds, maybe two.
One.
It was one, yeah. So I had to
Yeah.
charge the rampagers into both because they were too close. I did kill him on the charge mortals, but then and then I piled onto the objective. I think I killed one, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was one.
I think it was one, and then they died on the clapback.
Mhm.
So now I'm in like a horrific situation because now I am absolutely giving up Killmore no matter what, because he can just charge these guys over to here. I believe there was other stuff that was very killable, but essentially
Mhm.
from that point, like now Pat had, and this guy was like up here because he wanted to get
Mhm.
angles on these guys. From that point, now Pat had a bunch of good charge targets, like a bunch of good launching off points to hit my army,
Mhm.
and then of course when he kills this unit in his turn, I believe.
Yep.
Might have happened at a different point.
That
You,
was your turn. No,
it was
it
my
was
turn.
in your
Yeah,
turn.
so you rolled the blood god dice, and guess what
Yes.
happened?
And Grind came back, baby.
I came back, and
Immediately.
that scum ended up right here. And this is what at the point of the game, and I'll show again the score here. But you'll see here, there's oh actually you didn't get a 16, you got a 12, but um
Mhm.
it was a pretty big swing because from that point forward, yeah, because turn 4 you ended up getting a 12, and I got a 4, which ended up being like the momentum that you needed to really get back in the game. You had stuff on objectives. You were like charging 8-bound here. I think the broadsides were actually one of the last things to go, but essentially this crackback, you end up getting advanced charge. You hit me here.
Mhm.
I know you had exalted here with stealth suits.
Yep.
You had a unit of 8-bound in this hammerhead over here.
Yep.
With this jackal who just like stayed alive the whole game.
And these
Um,
guys missed their charge, and they died in the middle.
Yeah, they died in the middle, and then I overwatched to bring these guys down to one dude, which is a high roll for sure. But at the end of the game, it ended up being Pat had Angron and I think one unit of Exalted, I believe. And I think if you just had a
Mhm.
third unit, you would have won. I
Yeah.
believe because then it would have gotten you the kill more slash hold more. Um,
Mhm.
it would have gotten you the 16, I think, because I think I only killed two in your turn, and you were only able to kill two just because you had the two units, the two
Yep.
units left. So really tight game, and I thought like a really good. Yeah, I just thought it was like you were down real bad like really quickly, um,
Mhm.
and I thought you like played your outs really well, which is like at the end of the day what a good player does is like doesn't let like the game situation get to you. Um, so yeah, I thought it was very well played, Pat. Especially in a game where
Yeah.
you're kind of like you're kind of screwed at the jump because this Rhino basically kind of had to deploy here, which is exactly how our practice game went. And I had one Hammerhead activation to try to get a kill turn one, and then his 5-man Berserkers didn't kill my 10 Pathfinders. They killed 9, which again happened in the last game. Um, so that was like a big swing really early. Um, I am curious because I mean now knowing like having that happen a couple times, I think you just like throw a grenade right before you charge.
I just didn't. I should have just activated with the spawn first. The spawn weren't going to kill 10 guys,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and
exactly. And
then
then you could probably
not
pile
tried to
in.
do the, and then I kill you. Like, I think I was wanting to make sure because you had put crew on the objective here too, like one or two crew,
Yep.
and then I was like, okay, I want to deny that, and then also kill the pathfinders,
Yeah, you
and
just kind of went for
then
the greedy play.
yeah, and I would way rather, I should have done it in the situation where if your pathfinders live, I'm still denying primary,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to letting both happen.
Yep.
Because I had enough berserkers on the objective to deny you, but I didn't have the spawn in a place where they could do anything after I swung with my berserkers.
Yep.
So that was my one mistake. I should have grenaded. I should have shot them.
Yep.
Um, try to plink off a couple. Um, but you know, that's that at the end of the day. I had 8 bound nearby, so I thought that they would get me the 10
Mm-hmm.
guys. I thought the reroll ones would get me there.
Yep.
It just didn't.
Yep.
This happens.
Good game either way. Now let's transition to the the new datasheet, which vastly changes this matchup. I would say, in my estimation. So
Yes.
tell me a little bit about um, the new Goremongers models and like what gets you excited about using them and how you think it might like change the matchup into Tau and otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it's super exciting. Um, one of the hardest things to deal with as a monophase army is move blocks. Infiltrators are top the list. It's always been a struggle for world leaders because part of what makes world leaders so strong is having scout and Invocatus guaranteeing like 8 bound have scout. Invocatus has scout himself. He gives 2 units scout. So, for my army, I have 2 units of 8 bound. They have scout natively. Invocatus has scout and gives 2 other units scout. So that's 5 units with scout, which is really, really strong. But if you're able to block that off, it really becomes an issue of like getting up the board and staging effectively. Uh, so just having the keyword is amazing. I mean, in addition to having the reactive move, it starts getting gross. There's a lot of play that you can have with sticking objective, having sticky on death from shooting and having a reactive move. It puts us in a situation where we can a unit can't any good shooting player, Tau player, like you do it all the time because I have sticky on death. You put something on an objective first before you end up shooting them, so I can't sticky it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if I'm fully lining the outside of an objective with my Goremongers, and then you come near me, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna reactive move backwards, and then you're not on the objective, and now you're charged a 9 or a 10 you know instead of a 6. You're probably just going to be like, all right, I got to chalk it up and give him the 15 because I can't, I'm going to miss that charge and I need to shoot him. I can't just not shoot them and then he gets a 15. Like I have to, trade the resource. So the reactive move, I think in general is really strong, but the power of infiltrators is one. Um, Worst case scenario now is still really, really good for us. And by that, I mean, the way that any good player will play their infiltrators against world leaders is they'll wait till the end. They'll see where Invocatus
Yep.
ends up. They'll see where the scouting units end up, and then they'll just be like string out exactly where they're going to be. Now, you could still do a good job of blocking scouts by knowing where to place infiltrators if you get the first drop. If you know where, usually in the center of the deployment, where the big staging ruins are. If you block that off, that'll still be good. But now, since you've placed your infiltrators first, it gives me an opportunity to find a place where I can put my scouts in a way that I can still get my scout moves. So that already, worst case scenario, is already much better. Because I have units, the 8 bound unit, they're just 3 guys, and I'm completely fine with having a unit of 3, out near fringe of an objective so they guarantee scout, especially if it's to safety. So even if it's like 2 units guaranteeing scout, it's still way better than 0, right? Um, but then part 2 of that is being able to draw my infiltrators first, which is just guaranteeing my units get scout. And it's definitely a new muscle for me, just understanding how it works. But um, I think that's just the way I'm planning on playing it, is guaranteeing my units get a scout, not necessarily stringing over the middle and like completely, trying to move block somebody else. That's not the World Leaders game plan. The World Leaders game plan is like, stage really effectively, don't get shot, and sometimes it can get dicey on GW layouts, even with an advance and moving 9 for 8 bound, like there are still angles that people can get, and it can be hard to get to, a staging ruin out of line of sight. So everybody's going to run them. There's a lot of rumors right now about what world leaders are going to get in our codex and things like advancing charge and leaving. Um, so to me, I'm just taking advantage of it while I've got it. Uh, it's definitely like a really, really strong mechanic for world leaders to have. Uh, I think most world leaders players are just going to use it to alpha strike their opponents all the time, and it's definitely a toxic play pattern. But the strong players are going to use it to guarantee their staging. And it's a unit that you want to keep alive because the reactive move is janky. Like I said, it's janky with sticky on death, with having a fight burst unit around. It can get really, really nasty. So I'm already cooking up things I can do with those units. But I think one is auto include. Two to me is just too much. Um, they don't hit super hard, and at that point you're usually taking out a unit of 8 bound because they're 85 points. You can't trade them 1-to-1 with jackals or spawn. So that's where I see him fit in. It's one is all you need to give yourself a pocket for 15 8 bound to get closer.
Yeah, I think to your point, like I think this having this one unit in the army, I think it like jumps world leaders up like an entire tier in like a tier list.
Yeah,
Like, right now I'd say like both Tau and world leaders are in like a similar spot, like power level wise. They're probably like bottomish B tier, let's say, like middling to bottomish B tier. But I think this like gets you to like the top of B tier, low A tier. And like, can you imagine going in RTT and just playing Surge 3 games in a row? It's just like, okay,
yeah,
I just have like a 50-50
yeah,
at the beginning of every game to just like basically win. Like, and
yeah. And then worst case scenario, like I think another important part of being a melee pressure army is knowing the angles that your opponent's going to use.
mhm.
Right? I'm practicing for a GT that's using WTC train, and there's one map where um, one of the ruins, like right past one of the ruins, the angle is like looks into every staging ruin. It's like basically completely shows the lines into your deployment zone, your staging ruin, like behind your staging ruin, in your staging ruin. Um, and this person didn't have infiltrators, so I knew I was able to scout my whole army. And I was like, it was Grey Knights, and I was just like, I'm going to deploy in that spot so you can't drop guys there because that angle will completely ruin me. So I'm just gonna like these guys are gonna be there. You're not gonna be able to drop there. It's too far away from your deployment zone to get there turn one. Because I know how important that angle is going to be to my opponent. He's going to be trying to live there, so I want to do everything in my power to make sure he can't get there. So there is still some play with um, not blocking your opponent's infiltrators or scouters and helping block angles. I think that's going to be the thing that's going to be most foreign to World Leaders players. It's like, okay, what if my scouts aren't getting blocked? Like, where the hell do I put these guys?
Mhm.
It's like, do I put them in my expansion objective? Do I like try to, block my opponent and move block them? And it's like in some situations, yeah. I mean, if I'm going against Custodes, I'll just move block you. Like, go, give me another turn. You're not flying over me. You know,
Just be
get a
careful,
taste of your own
man.
medicine. Get a taste of your own medicine, Johnny.
Yeah, I was playing a
Um,
Tau player who strung his pathfinders across the middle of the table, like basically on two objectives. Like he had to scout like next to them on layout 6, and I just like put exactly where you had those 8 bound, where you charged them in. I just had an entire
uh,
unit of wardens with the blade champ, and then on the middle of the table, like pushed up against his staging ruin, I just had another unit of wardens and blade champ on the objective. Uh,
well, I won't. I know how to stop
yeah, just
springboards. I think once you
okay.
play enough melee, you can see how
Yeah,
impactful those can be.
yeah,
Because
for sure.
I've done it to you before too. Like even on layout one,
Mhm.
like I remember one of our games, you had like you put one guy in the pocket,
Yeah.
in the L pocket. You put one guy there,
Yeah, and then you
and
just
it's
stage
like
the
three
whole.
eight bound can
Yeah, you're just like
I
cool,
just place
free.
them. Yeah, thank you for letting me
Exactly.
stage and kill your
It's
unit.
the worst.
So those are the things to look out for too. Is if you're a if you're almost a monophase army like World Eaters, knowing where when we base to base where we're going to end up, like you do not want to trade in a way where I can hide. You
Yep,
know, you want to
100%.
trade where
That's not a
in a
trade.
way where
That isn't a trade.
yeah, that's not a trade. Exactly.
You just,
Exactly. You want to put them in a place where if I'm killing you, then I'm in the open and I will die,
yeah,
right? No matter what. And so that's like model by model, you know,
yeah,
because it's like you want to guarantee that I can't consolidate back to an objective or consolidate into another unit, or when I'm basing you, just base you in a way that I'm not getting shot next turn because that's perfect for me. I just get a unit for free, get free movement, um, and then I have that much more tempo because that's another tempo swing, right? Like we talked
hmm
about, World Leaders is all about tempo, and those are the types of plays that I'm looking for on a constantly. It's like, okay, how can I put you in a position where you're going to have to move a lot more units forward to trade with me, like make you uncomfortable so that you have to um, start throwing more of your army out there to kill my unit. Because at the end of the day, it's like a lot of what Tao's game plan is. Like ideally, we're playing a trading game, and I have 20 units, and you have 12, and I'm gonna have 8, and you're gonna have 0,
hmm
and then the game's gonna be over. Um, so being able to get a free unit here and there is massive. And then being able to, right, if I can be in a situation where I have 10 units left, you have 17 units left, and then I do my go turn, and it's like you have 8 and I have 10, then yeah, maybe you kill 4 or 5 of them, but my other 4 or 5 are going to completely collapse your army, you
hmm
know? Um, so that's kind of like tempo is such a big part of the game that people don't talk about because it's not very sometimes it doesn't seem logical the plays you're doing, right? Like
yeah,
throwing Angron for 5 Vespid, throwing a Mo unit out for Kroot. Like it makes no sense intuitively.
hmm
Um, I think that's part of the game that isn't talked about enough is just like, okay, how when you know on paper make a really really bad trade,
hmm
um, because it's not just point for point, unit for unit. It's like everything else that you're forcing your opponent to do
yeah.
is part of that play,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like moving
Like,
into your threat ranges to kill those said units, giving a potential like VP that could swing like the game as it stands, like that sort of thing.
because at the end of the day, it's like if we're trading, like even if I have bottom of turn, any player who has bottom of turn and it's like an even score, you're gonna be like, okay, I'll just I can keep trading and I'll win this game because I'll get big bottom of turn scoring. That's what Tau wants to happen, right? Because you just are naturally way better at secondaries. So it's like if we're getting even on primary, like over the course of the game, you're just gonna have way more units left to do way more stuff. And so also like forcing those units out, it's like it is an opportunity for you to pull action secondaries and be like, I can't do actions.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I
Yeah.
need to kill everything in front of me. So it's like it's a primary swing and it's a secondary swing because you don't have stuff to do stuff. And if I'm killing your units and then you're forced to do actions um, in a place where I can now access you, like that's worst case scenario.
Yeah, and,
Um,
and one point
so I
on
think
that
it's
is like to your point, just again on tempo is like putting Angron in that spot. Like every time he doesn't die when I activate a unit is another unit that I have to activate into him that I can't activate into the rest of your army. Like even the stuff
yeah,
that's
like I
just
had
sitting on
eight
the
bound.
open, like dude, I still had a hard
Yeah,
time like taking them out. Like it
yeah,
really came like if and let's just say like Angron doesn't die, then I just lose. Like I think I just lose on the spot,
yeah,
like because he goes and he could just you saw where like the Pathfinders or sorry the Stealth Suits and Shadow Sun and the Hammerhead were he could just like base all three and be like, all right, 5 attacks here, 3 attacks here, 4 attacks here, like it's all dead.
yeah,
And I have an Angron in your
yeah, and then
backfield. Like what are you gonna do
yeah,
about it?
and the 8 bounder nearby to give me reroll ones, and then it's
Yeah,
like
it's so
then I
over.
start rolling my blessings so I can get sustained up, and then it's like I have one 8 bound killing, you know, almost killing a hammerhead because it's like
Yeah,
rerolling everything,
yeah,
Um, but yeah,
that's gross. Well, what do you say? Should we go to Verdansk?
yeah, we should go to Verdansk.
Hell yeah.
I'm down. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Pat. And yeah, that's gonna do it for everybody for today's video. If you enjoyed, Drop a like, comment, subscribe. One thing before we go is I think one thing that we didn't talk about, like we talked a lot about the controllables in this game, but I would say like there is some RNG elements to this game that like really swing like the win percentage. So I think I think if Pat gets advanced in charge early, if he goes first, even on Purge, it's like so much more important to go first against World Eaters because then I get to see the Blood God dice before I move my turn. So I really do think Pat could have won this game, and even like down bad, it was still a really close one, but.
I mean, it's the same thing too. Like Angron doesn't come back. That's
Yeah, that's
just
true.
like a it's like a 13-7, 14-6, and I
Yeah.
just have no limit units left in the game. But that's just part of what it is. It's like playing your outs. You know, once Angron died, I was just like I'm mashing the roll the blood dice every single time I can
Yeah.
because I know that's going to be a massive tempo swing for me. And he now will not have a way to deal with him. And I know that I'm just going to get kills from Angron, and John's not going to be able
Yeah, because I
to
already all my secret
get
missiles
him.
are gone. I don't have any like grenades in my back pocket anymore. I'm out of CP. Um, so, anyways, yeah, if you made it to the end of today's video, if you could do the YouTube algorithm things, like, comment, subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. Also, want to shout out my channel patrons. Really cool that I get a little kickback from doing what I enjoy, talking about Tau. If you'd like a chance to play with me in a game of 40k, I've been doing weekly games with new members where we can test out new lists, get live feedback, and be a part of the community that we've built there.